So the trend is, ultra running, ultra cycling, but you thought, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to become an ultra swimmer. So can you talk me through what appealed to you about swimming such vast distances I can only imagine?
Well, look, I've always been a swimmer since I was a kid. I am not a runner and I'm not a cyclist, so those are not really on the cards for me. But I just grew up loving the water, and I did every water sport under the sun when I was a kid. I spent a lot of time at the beach. And I swam at quite a high level and then played water polo at a national level. And you know, as a young, as a teenager, you're a bit of an idiot sometimes, and you don't realize the opportunity you have when it's right in front of you. And I think had I focused and put my head down, then I could have gone to the Olympics and performed at the highest level. But when you're 16, you sort of sometimes just go, no, I don't want to do this anymore, and you pack it in for no good reason. And a couple of years later, I was watching people that I had played water polo with at the Olympics, and I felt really disappointed in myself that I had thrown away that chance, that sort of opportunity to be the best athlete I could be. And it was something that I carried with me for quite a long time, that I'd given up the chance to be a great athlete. And then, funny enough, during COVID, I took up swimming again. I met this fantastic group of people who are ocean swimmers, and they were marathon swimmers as well. And COVID really gave everyone an opportunity to stop a bit and stop living such busy lives. And, really all it was that I was allowed to do was go swimming. And so I picked it up again and, loved it. And, the first time I went to the swimming squad, the coach said to me, Eva, what channel are you going to swim first? And I said, I'm not here to swim any channels. I'm just here to get fit and do a bit of swimming squad. That's it. And, look how things have escalated in 4 years. So, I feel like I've been given a second opportunity to be the best athlete I can be. And I just feel so grateful for this, all the forces that came together that have put me in this position. And I'm just really excited and dedicated. And I feel like my swimming career is just beginning again.
Because one of the things I wanted to ask you about when you are swimming, because just if anyone's listening, we're not talking about an hour or two swim. We're talking about, 10, 12 hours, like big distances that you are swimming. So how do you motivate yourself? What is that kicking in of discipline? And I guess to an extent, is it the missed opportunity, as you put it, of you could have made it to the top level of the Olympics, and obviously now you have this second chance of being the best athlete that you can be. I think you put it perfectly there. So maybe that kicks in at that really difficult, it's kind of like that 2/3 point, isn't it? Where the middle third, you're like, I'm in a third, I've done that, but I still have like twice as much to go. That's when you really need to kick in and think, why am I doing this? What is the why for me?
Not to horrify you, but actually a 12-hour swim is a short swim for me. I've done two swims over 24 hours, and in 4 weeks' time, I'm doing another 24-hour plus swim, and that's the
I
direction I'm
think you've
going.
leveled up my questions now. Okay, why? Okay, I know you wanted to go to the Olympics, but that's not a good enough reason to swim for 24 hours.
Yeah. I don't know. I've got a little bit of a Moana thing going where I just want to know how far I'll go, and it's just I feel like I swim because I am. I feel like I have always just been so comfortable in the water. My cousin said to me after my swim last year, she said, "You just look more comfortable swimming than walking," and I really fit in this sport very well. And in fact, my entire training regime is all about cultivating comfort in the water, and doing everything I can to make sure I'm efficient in the water and that my body is feeling comfortable, that my nutrition is normal. Like I don't do sort of gels or any kind of processed things when I swim. I'm actually a keto athlete, so my body feeds off fat during long swims, and I don't take in, the sort of normal things that I suppose people do. I focus a lot on efficiency, and for me, I think it's part of this sort of innate love of the water that I have, and part of this, I've never I've always felt I could go further, and it's like a puzzle to work out. And you go, okay, last year when I had my first attempt at swimming from Italy to Albania, I swam 28 hours, and then the wheels fell off the wagon, and I got pulled at 28 hours with 10 kilometers to go. But my body was fine. It was mentally, I was just feeling really sorry for myself, to be honest, because it was a really hard swim, and I was kind of, like, I just had a crappy attitude where I'd encountered a few unexpected challenges throughout that swim. And I was like, no, the swim didn't go the way I wanted. And then once you start feeling sorry for yourself and, like going down that rabbit hole, it's really hard to bring yourself back. And this year I have an entirely different mental approach to everything. Like I've changed so much to kind of be so much lighter in my approach to the swim, and just kind of like have that comfort and have that smoothness throughout the swim. So yeah, look, I mean, I understand that it's not everyone's cup of tea, but for me, it's just something I feel really comfortable with. And to be honest, I did my first 24-hour swim 2 years after starting long distance swimming. Like, so I didn't even kind of start with the smaller distances first. Most people start with the English channels and all of that, and then they can progress up. But I was like, I think I can swim for 24 hours, so I'm just going to do it, and I want to see where I go from here. And yeah, so to be honest, I can't really explain it very well, but there's a lot of love and passion that I put into this sport.
Not to contradict you, but I think you explained it perfectly. You feel more at home in the water, and what's it, you look more at home swimming than walking. I think that one of the joys of having conversations like this is you speak to people who have found the thing that they feel like they were put on the earth to do. So, it's what you were meant to do. Like you just love it, you have that motivation for it. And I think it's so interesting when you talk about the mental side of it, because physically you're like, I am fine. I can swim for literally days. I'm not even saying that as an exaggeration. Amazing. But then it's the mental side of it. And I think that's a lot with athletes. Our minds limit ourselves because it's uncomfortable, like sure you can swim that far, but you get tired. You feel it and your muscles are aching. So how do you deal with that sleep deprivation? Because there's kind of two different minds in here, because you have the rational mind when you're rested and you're starting out. So say the first, 5 to 12 hours, you've had enough sleep. Sure, it's tiring, I'm sure. But after you go into the sleep deprivation cycle of it, suddenly I guess that's where the weakness kicks in. And if you're 28 hours in, as you say there, because I think if you go like 17 hours without sleep, you have the same brain function as being legally drunk. So when you go past that, while that's even without swimming a mega long distance, how do you train that mental side of it as well as obviously the physical side?
That's a great question. And first of all, something that I think is extraordinary about ultra endurance sport is how well women tend to perform as distances get longer. And that's the case in endurance running, and it's absolutely the case in endurance swimming, where women hold the top 7 spots for the longest swims of all time. So it's not just a blip that women are kind of, performing well in ultramarathon swimming, that, Sarah Thomas and Vicky Keith are just absolute dominating forces in this sport. And one thing that I've found is really important over distance is the sort of traditional approach that people have to endurance sport is no pain, no gain, and go hard, and like that kind of really masculine, like, very aggressive approach to endurance sport, that it's something that you've got to fight and that you've got to attack. And I absolutely don't take that sort of mindset. I'm a lot more kind of introspective moving into it. And, you're absolutely right that, once you've been swimming for 28 hours, you've got very little resilience to process things, and and you can just, you get really upset about really little things because you just have no resilience there. And, just this time when I did the English Channel about a month ago, it wasn't a really long swim. It was only a 10-hour and 49-minute swim. But I was very cold, and my resilience was also very low in this in that swim. And I could see my mum sitting on the boat, and she was texting, and she wasn't looking at me, and she was sort of like nodding off a little bit. And like, she'd been up all night, and and I'm sure she was texting people about the swim or whatever. But in my head, I'm going, oh, she's not even paying attention to me. And then I ended up saying to my support person, if she's going to fall asleep on the side of the boat, then please ask her to sit on the other side, because like it's upsetting me. So, you sort of have that real weakness in your emotional regulation. And you've got to learn how to deal with yourself at that point. So instead of kind of letting yourself go off a cliff and go to a dark spot and, kind of fall over, you need to kind of say to your support group, hey, this is just really upsetting me. Could you kind of like address that and not feel kind of guilty or bad about sort of expressing yourself in that way? The other thing is, last year, in my approach to the Italy Albania swim, I never kind of considered myself an athlete. I was always like, I'm like a barrister, and that's what I do. And then I like do these long swims on the side, and it's just do it for kicks and whatever. And so like for me, I sort of that was a bit of a safety mechanism for me, because it's like, if I'm not really taking it that seriously, then, if I fail, I can be like, well, whatever, like, I don't take it that seriously. Like, I'm going to just do this on the side. Like, whatever, I'm not really an athlete. And the thing is that attitude really came up to haunt me in the really dark hours of that swim when it was really hard, because I'm like, you're saying to yourself, what are you doing? You're not an athlete. You can't, you were having drinks a couple of weeks ago, you do this, and you're not really an athlete. Like, so what are you doing thinking you can do this swim? And so that really wore me down in the latter stages of the swim. And that kind of like belief that I had set myself up with, that you're not a real athlete. And then at 28 hours, you're like, you're right, you're not a real athlete, so of course you can't do this. In my approach to the swim this time around, I've done a lot of work on that insecurity, and I'm like, damn right, I'm an athlete. I'm a really like my body through and through is an athlete's body, and that affects the way I've trained and how I've approached what I was telling you about the comfort in the water. And I've sort of approached my training this time around so that when I get to those dark moments at the end of the race, there's nowhere for that thought to go of, you're not an athlete, so you can't really do this. It's actually, I'm one hell of an athlete, and this is what I came here to do, and this is what I'm capable of doing.
Yeah, and I think linking back to the mental side of it, a lot of it is the self-belief, the self-talk. It's turned into a bit of a cringy thing, isn't it? Self-talk and be positive. But ultimately, if you are that deep into something, that is what's going to come at you. If you actually deep down don't think you can do it, whether it is you're running your first 5K or you're swimming like Italy to Albania, like, something like that, anywhere in between, it is ultimately that foundation of when it gets tough, why are you doing it? Who are you doing it for? And like, where is that self-belief? Don't be so hard on yourself. And it is that kind of element of it. But then I guess you say the dark hours of the race, which is obviously you're meaning like when it gets really tough. However, you also swim through the night, which I love cardio, but I'm not really a swimmer because it's just not naturally. Maybe I've not given it a shot, but anyway, it's like the thought of swimming in cold water through the night sounds really, really terrifying. And I don't mean to be ignorant, but like, I feel like a lot of people also think, oh my goodness, I would absolutely love to be able to do that. But how? Actually, how? So can you talk me through how you swim through the night, through the dark water? Do you have a head torch on? Like, all the details here. What do you do?
So look, swimming at night, swimming in the dark is not an unusual part of marathon swimming, because often you just have to go with the right tide. So you do prepare for it. I feel like you do have a torch on you. You sort of put a little torch on the back of your head and your cuzzy. I think, look, I think it's about being rational, right? Because the fear of the dark is you can't see what's around you. But the reality is, when you're in the ocean, even in the daytime, you can't see what's more than a meter away anyway. So, you sort of think because you're in the light that you've got that comfort and that security, but it actually doesn't change that much when you're in the darkness. And similarly, the kind of false friend, like I know people are very frightened of sharks, and but
You're Australian here.
Yeah,
you're gonna be like, it's fine.
well, I guess I just take the approach that if a shark's coming to get me, I'll be the last to know. So there's no point in kind of worrying about it, because there's nothing you can do to
At that point, the head torch isn't going to help, is it?
Exactly, right? Like it's just it's there. If that's if the shark's got its lock on you, then there's nothing you can do about it. Even though I like to joke to say you meant to punch a shark in the mouth if it eats you, but I don't think I would rise to that occasion to do that.
I actually had a shark diver on the podcast, and it was fascinating. She lives in Hawaii. She was telling me all the sorts of things that you need to do if a shark was coming towards you. You push it away and stuff. And I'm like, that is great for you. I'm so happy for you that you love to do that. No.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I have encountered sharks while I was swimming before, but like they just sort of they're just swimming. They're not like and so if they decided they wanted to eat you, then I think they would come at you with a lot more vigor than just sort of hovering around. But yeah, look, swimming in the dark, I guess it just doesn't bother me, and it's just something you work at. You do in training, and when you're a swimmer, you're you're always swimming early in the morning anyway, and whether that's at the beach or at the pool, so I think there's just like gradients that you just kind of work up to, and you just have to kind of be rational about these things and go like, what security do I actually have in the light that I don't have in the dark?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you mention training, how does one train for such a long distance? Like, or if you're going to train for, say, an ultra run, then you have to do kind of be able to do the distance in a week that you would do on race day. Is that similar with something like swimming, or how does that kind of kick in?
So yeah, look, there are a lot of approaches to how you approach training for a swim like this. I take a lifespan approach to swimming, right? And I look at all the, I've put so many kilometers into swimming over my entire life that, my body sits really comfortably swimming, but there might be bad things that I've learnt in terms of my technique, in terms of how I sit in the water. And so I think in terms of mileage, I sort of try to think of it in terms of marginal gains. And I don't think I have a huge amount to gain from adding a ton more mileage, because over the years that I've been a swimmer, even if I add an extra 10K a week or an extra 20K a week, that's actually a very small amount of mileage that I'm adding in terms of the amount that I've swum in my entire life. But if I'm working on things such as my technique, such as my mobility and my flexibility, these are areas that I've done very little work on over the years. Like when you're a kid as a swimmer, you just swim and, like that's just what you do. But, as an adult, you've got a lot more going on in terms of mobility and your flexibility and your strength and, building that muscle resilience. And so I put a lot of focus on this time around. I've put a lot of focus on the efficiency of my swim and just that comfort in the water, because the thing about swimming is that it's a resistance sport, right? Like the whole idea around swimming is you're navigating the water as a force. So the more you can eliminate the resistance, and so that's through your stroke efficiency, it's through how your body sits in the water, it's through your body weight, it's all of these factors that go into whether or not you're, how much resistance you're creating on the water and how comfortably you're moving through the water. So, I mean, that's not to say there's not a huge amount of mileage involved. Like, at the height of my training, I'm doing 50 kilometers a week. But at this point in particular, there's a lot more that I'm factoring in where I think I get better gains for my performance than if I just sort of do more and more and more mileage.
As you say, it is the lifespan mileage of often when we get older, even, if you've been exercising through your teenage years, when you get into your 20s, you'll probably see a spike. A lot of athletes, as they get through their 20s and then into your 30s, if you're doing ultra sport, like you really just accumulate more and more, like as you go through each decade. It's incredible. And that, I think, it's a really interesting point that you said earlier about women actually being able to perform so well in the ultra endurance sports, because that's something that surprises a lot of people, because in shorter distances there's a massive gap in performance between men and women, but it really closes, and women in fact overtake in the really, really long distance. But also often it is like women who are older, so you would say, I don't know what people on average would say the athletic peak is, but for Olympic sport, for example, say in your 20s anyway. Whereas it's actually the older you get, the better you get, the faster you get, the further you get to go, which is so fascinating. And I feel like it's something that's not really talked about enough, which kind of goes into the self-belief element of it. Where are the role models that we're seeing who actually are saying, just because you've been doing like sport all your life, it means that you actually do have that big base that you can tap into throughout your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that, I think the whole concept of mental strength for me is the ability to manage your vulnerabilities. And so when you're feeling weak, like anyone can swim, I don't know, 50 meters, and, you do a little bit of training, you can do, like, it's not mentally tough to do these sorts of shorter swims. But when you're pushing yourself to your absolute limits, that's when you're dealing with that point where you have very little resilience left, very little ability to deal with that. And, when you've got the capability to kind of, deal with those thoughts as you're having them and continue to get your body to perform, that's what I think mental strength is. And, I think dealing with vulnerabilities is something that women grow up and are brought up to know how to do that. It's a bit about emotional intelligence, a bit about the way in which we have to operate in the world. And so I think it's a skill that we have, that we can kind of get our bodies can perform. But really, if you want to be performing, for those, plus 24-hour races, you do need to be able to go to talk yourself through that type of challenge.
When you were doing in your teenage years the competitive swimming at such a high standard compared to when you're doing it now, do you find that the community and the belief around that and women's performance is different at all, or how do you kind of feel like that is now?
Yeah, like, honestly, I was so lucky as a kid that I was never aware of my gender until I kind of was into high school. My brother's only 18 months older than me, so I played with him and his mates a lot. Swam with boys, and we competed separately, but I used to beat the boys, and like, I don't know, like, I never thought of my gender as being an issue. And that was across life. That was in every area of life. It was academically. It was in my family. Like, I was never conscious of gender being a disadvantage. And it wasn't until I became an adult that you start kind of just receiving these, microaggressions, I suppose, and it just happens kind of so much. And even just by way of example, yesterday I was working out in a park, and like a man comes up, just a strange man who I didn't know at all, and he comes up and he's like, "You should be proud of your body." And, it's one of those things where you're like, do you know who I am? Like, can I swear? No.
Yeah, you can swear.
Okay. I'm like, I can swim fucking 24 hours without stopping. Of course I'm goddamn proud of my body. Like, I don't need some random man who thinks because she's a bit pudgy and, like, she's like, I'm not a thin person. I'm quite muscular, but, like, you just know that his mind frame is oh, look at that, like, pudgy woman working out so hard. Like, I better go give her a compliment to, like, cheer her up, right? And I get comments like that from men in public all the time. Like, it's shocking. And I have no problem having pride in my body, and I am very confident and think my body is amazing. And, you know, like, I'm not concerned that I'm not, slim and looking like a model or anything like that. My body does what it needs to do and does what I want it to do, and I'm extraordinarily proud of that. But you get these microaggressions coming at you all the time about your body. And the other part you see it is when people render women's achievements in this space invisible, and you just you see that so often. As I mentioned previously, women hold the top 7 longest swims of all time. And sometimes people are talking about who the greatest marathon swimmers are, and they won't mention any women. And you think, like, I just think it's factually wrong to not think of women equally as achieving in this space, because if you're not acknowledging, I think Sarah Thomas, for example, she's got the longest swim of all time, 67 hours in Lake Champlain. She did a 4-way crossing of the English Channel. I think if you're talking about the greatest ultramarathon swimmers of all time, if you don't include her in your list somewhere, I think you're just
You're just wrong.
Yeah, you're just wrong. And the same with Vicky Keith and her achievements. And, in Australia, we have Chloe McArdle, who swam the English Channel 44 times and, at one point held the record for the longest open water swim of all time. And so, it's really noticeable when people render women's achievements invisible. And, it just makes me sad. It's just that kind of, like, our achievements are not seen as, the same as we're just not seen on the same level. And that doesn't go for everyone, of course. But that's, it's generally a wonderful community. But when these things come up, you just go, oh, like, that sucks. And I never had that awareness when I was a kid.
It's so frustrating when that societal element, and I say that cautiously, because it is a small section of it. There is a huge welcoming community, as you say, but then the facts speak for themselves. You can't argue with that, and it is an incredible achievement for women to. I'm like, yes, that it's the 7 fastest, which I don't know if that's good or not, but for the competitive thing, I just think that's amazing. And as you say, to know what your body can do and to feel like you're really pushing it to its limit is something that suddenly you don't care about, like, what you look like. It's just like, wow, like, I've been able to do that, and to actually have to channel it in that way. I think it's so empowering in that sense. Like, what can my body do, and how can I do that? And I want to ask you, what's the most successful swim, or when you look back, what are you most proud about in your swimming career so far?
Look, I think I'm yet to have that moment. I think certainly my English Channel swim last month was a really tough swim that I made it through. It was a lot tougher than I expected it to be, and I was really proud with my mental process to work through, to kind of to finish the swim. Because I'm not this sort of goes to what I was saying before about that mindset of I'm an athlete or I'm not an athlete. I'm not a cold water swimmer, and I suddenly got dealt 13-degree water that I had to deal with. And so you're getting into the water going, I'm not a cold water swimmer. I'm just not made to do this swim. And I managed to coach myself through that process and finish the swim in a time that I was ecstatic about. Like, it was a really, it was just such a great swim that I'm really proud of. I'm super proud of my other 2 plus 24-hour swims, because they were a big effort, but I didn't finish either of those. And so they're a bit unfinished business. And I would have, and I think, I've had to mature. As I said, I sort of started doing these swims very early in my swimming career, and I just didn't have that maturity as an athlete to understand the challenges that I was facing and work my way through it to, manage to kind of finish the project. And, I'm really looking forward to my Italy to Albania swim in 4 weeks' time. Like, I feel like everything has come together really well. I also know you can't take anything for granted in this sport. So, I feel really confident about it, but, you never know what's going to happen. But, when I achieved the Italy to Albania swim, the fact that I had an unsuccessful attempt and came back and did it again is like just a further, element of pride that you don't, see a failure and fall down, that you have a not yet successful, and you keep on plugging at it. And that's what I think is just the most inspiring thing about sport, right? It's not necessarily the easy win. It's the one that you have to tough out and work your way through.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, another cliche, but you do learn a lot when you kind of don't quite make it. You come back at it and you come back with that experience, and also the fire behind you being like, I'm going to do this, like in your mind, like that resilience. This is not like unfinished business. I just think that is exactly what it is. And what sort of preparation goes into something like Italy to Albania? Is it an event itself, like a day that the day that you start off at the same time, or is it kind of like an event, like a route that people do? Or kind of talk me through your preparation for August and this big attempt?
So no, it's a swim that hasn't been done by according to Marathon Swimming Federation standards before. So when you're doing an uncharted effort, you're making it up and you're going, oh, I think I'll start here and I hope I'll get there and see how it goes. And that's kind of what went wrong last year is, we sort of got stuck against a current coming crossways and then a headwind coming into me. So the first 15 kilometres took me 9 hours to swim, when on a normal day, I could swim 15 kilometres in 4 or 5 hours. So you give it a go, and you've got a boat with you. It's not part of an event. You just there's no one else doing it. You literally just get a boat and ask Albania, is it okay if I show up? And you start swimming, and you've got your crew there, and
So how long are you hoping to do it in? What's your thoughts?
Look, that's a tricky question, because I'm gonna swim until it's finished, right? And so however long that takes, I'm gonna just do that. However, if we get it right, then I actually don't think it needs to be a longer than 24-hour swim. I think if we get the conditions right, I think it's probably it could be less than 24 hours. But having said that, this time I'm just going to swim until I get to Albania, and if that takes 40 hours, it takes 40 hours.
Amazing. And so you get in the water and then you start swimming. Do you stop? Do you have food? How does it actually work?
So you're not allowed to touch anyone or anything, or you're not allowed to touch the boat or get out, or you've got to be in the water that entire time. Every hour or so, I'll stop and take a feed, and so they'll toss me something from the boat, and I'll take something in, and then just keep on swimming. So I sort of stop for about a minute every hour.
Wow, that's amazing. You actually rendered me slightly speechless there. That is awesome.
When I watch the ultra marathon running and they get to take naps, I'm like, soft. We're not allowed to
changing their shoes. They're changing their clothes.
They can sit on seats and all of that.
I think that you actually are entitled to call ultramarathon soft. Not many people can, but you can. You absolutely can.
I wouldn't call Courtney Dowd a soft. She seems pretty hardcore.
I think she's pretty hardcore.
I actually devour content from ultramarathon runners because there's so little science on ultramarathon swimming. So I sort of turn to I turn to the ultramarathon runners. Camille Herron is another one that I follow quite closely, and just try to understand their process and apply it, see what I can learn from my process.
There's definitely a crossover, isn't it? And because again, the mental side of it is just such a big factor of it. So what is the average week in your life? Are you now a full athlete full time,
Oh,
or are you
I wish. That's my dream. Absolutely not. So I'm a barrister, and I run a not-for-profit organisation called Victim Advocates International. So yeah, I've got a hectic full-time job. My week, I guess, is I get up. So usually, like I swim every day, well, 5 days a week or 6 days a week. So every day there'll be a swim,
is
and then
that in a pool or is it outside always?
depending on Saturdays, I'll do a long swim out in the ocean, and the rest of my swims are in pools. And then so there'll be a swim now I'm in the UK. I swim in the evenings, which is a really bizarre thing here, but the squad I'm in swims in the evening. So in the morning, I'll do strength or mobility or conditioning work. So this morning I was in the park doing like some calisthenics stuff. Tomorrow I have a Pilates class in the morning. I do yoga, so I sort of alternate what I do during the day in the mornings, and then I sort of swim in the evenings, and then the hours in between is work, work, work.
And what's an average like calendar year for you? Do you have several points that you work towards? Or for example, like you've done the English Channel already this year and then next month you have Italy to Albania. Is that kind of your calendar, or do you have different events? I just love how you come up with these routes. I just think it's amazing.
I don't know. Like the last couple of years, after I've done a big swim, I've taken 3 months off and just done nothing. I mean, like as in, like I'll switch to running for a little bit, or but I'll take a big chunk of time out of swimming. I'm just so loving my training at the moment, and I haven't reached a point of. I don't think after my Albania swim I'm going to have a 3 month break. I think I'm pretty excited about where my body's at and what I'm doing, and so I'll do Albania, and then I'll turn to. I've got a list of swims that I want to do, so I'll start looking into putting those together. I think, but who knows? If Albania is a nightmare, then maybe I want to take a big break. But at the moment, I'm just absolutely loving my training, and I'm so excited about the swim. So if I've got that energy still, then I'll pick another swim and I'll give that a crack.
I think your attitude is so refreshing for the like I think it's probably because you've done like the very, very performance based sport in your teenage years. So you've kind of seen that side of it. So you've come in and you're still doing the very performance side sport, but with the attitude of actually wanting to do the sport, not just the achievement of that. And I think that's so refreshing and a really, yeah, healthy approach, which actually probably enables you to achieve a lot more.
I think because I've got this like innate feeling that it is my identity that I'm a swimmer, that I don't feel insecure about that. And so I can be very mindful and very, I can't think of the word, I can be very kind of mindful and very reactive to how I'm feeling, because my feeling is always going to be something that's going to advance my swimming. And so if I get up in the morning and I don't feel like going for a swim, I'm still going to feel like going to the gym, or I'm going to still feel like doing a yoga class or something like that. And so I am very intuitive. That's the word I was looking at. I'm very, very intuitive in my training. And it's also because my work is very stressful and quite kind of intense. And so I don't have space for my swimming to be an intense and stressful space. Swimming has to be an energizing and wonderful place for me. And so I won't do things that, add to my stress. It always has to be like, something that's feeding me. And so I think through kind of doing this intuitive training where, you're not just trying to tick off a box of, I have to swim this many Ks a week, and if I don't swim that many Ks a week, then my body is not prepared. It's like, that's sort of frou-frou sort of silliness. Like, I'm going to swim as much as my body feels prepared to swim this week. And, that's going to be really long distances sometimes, and that's going to be not as long distances sometimes. But, as long as my body is moving, I'm doing something that's going to advance my swimming.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, intuitive is just definitely the word to describe that. And it means that you have that motivation as well, but also the discipline when you need to kick in, and have that just sustainable exercising. And it links back to, you've done the miles all throughout your life, or kilometers, I guess, for swimming is how you measure it. But, you've done all that. So it counts, and it doesn't just go away because you've not swum for 5 days. It doesn't mean that your whole life's worth of swimming just doesn't exist anymore because you've missed a few. It's actually normal, which I think a lot of us in our mind, it comes back to that rational side of it. We're like, that is it. I have had 2 weeks off and I am just never going to be able to do anything again. Which if you said it out loud to someone, they'd be like, you're being ridiculous. But I think pretty much everyone will have thought that at some point.
Absolutely. I think everyone's done the maths of, oh my God, I missed this many kilometers and now I've got to make up this and this and this and this. And that's just not how it works, And then you also have to factor in how much your well being and your rest and, how much all of that factors into your performance as well. And so, like if you can kind of come back and sort of center yourself and, be like, oh, I am a swimmer or I'm a triathlete. And so, I'll always gravitate towards doing something that advances that. I don't have to kind of whip myself and, make myself do it all along the way. I think you do get there. But and that's not to say, uh, don't have structure to your training. And I'm not sort of like in hippy dippyville. But, like if I give an example, the squad that I've joined here in London are still are pool swimmers, and they are like hardcore. I swim in the lane with a woman that does 59 seconds for 100 backstroke. Like they're really hardcore swimmers, which I haven't swum with. I've been sort of swimming with marathon swimmers prior to this, and the difficult thing is that I can't stay in the pool for an extra half an hour to get my mileage up. Which is what I ordinarily would do in the morning. I'd normally do a 2-hour swim, but the way that pool scheduling works here is I can only do 90 minutes. So instead of getting freaked out and stressed out, I've now sort of changed my approach that I'm like, I'm going to like work on my high intensity because this is an amazing opportunity to chase like these exceptional swimmers, and to like work on my pace. And that's what the focus of my training is going to be. This isn't going to be the sort of like 90-minute swim that isn't quite what I want it to be. I'm high intensity sessions. And that's worked really well for me.
Yeah, it's all just training, isn't it, at the end of the day? And it is that rational side of it. And
Yeah.
have there been any times when you've been either training in the water or doing a race or attempt and things have gone wrong? Like what's something that could have, because it's high risk. You are in open water through the night. Has anything spring to mind?
There's never been a moment that I was scared. I think last year the Albania swim kind of went wrong on multiple levels. We got the conditions wrong, and then it turns out in the Adriatic Sea, I was told there were no stingers, but at night stingers rise to the top. And so I'd had no stingers during the day, but then I'm swimming through the dark through all these jellyfish that were stinging the crap out of me. And, that was really unpleasant. And then then my sort of mental plan was, swim the first day and then enjoy the night swim. And then the sun will come up and you'll see Albania and you can just fang it home. And the sun came up and there was fog everywhere and I couldn't see Albania. And so, so that's when I started feeling really sorry for myself. I was just like, this swim sucked. Like, this is unfair. Nothing worked. Everything's against me. And so, yeah, I do feel that there were a lot of challenges that the Albania swim threw at me last year. That you probably don't necessarily get in normal swims. Like that swim could have been a lot easier. But having said, I think the measure of as I said at the start, the measure of a marathon swimmer is how you rise to the occasion. And ultimately, I didn't rise to the occasion to, tackle the conditions I was given on the day. And that's just how I approached it last year. But this year, if we get one thing right, which like if we get the conditions right, or if one thing kind of goes my way, then it's going to be a much easier swim. So it doesn't have to be as hard as it was last year, I don't think.
And what does success look like to you when not like an event or something that you've achieved, But when you look kind of at life, what point would you feel like, you know what, this is success?
I'm just on this path, and professionally I am as well. It's the how far can I go, right? I don't know what success looks like, but I guess I'll know when I get there. Because I'm not going to do this forever. I mean, maybe I will. I don't know, but like I'm loving it so much, and I feel so grateful to have been given this second opportunity as an athlete. I've got so many ideas for swims that I want to do, and I'm just so excited to start checking them off my list. And so, yeah, so I think I want to be a creative swimmer. I want to do some things that other people haven't done before. Encourage people to think outside the box and you know. Find other swims and make their mark on new locations. I don't know what success looks like, but I'm really enjoying the journey.
I love that. Yeah, I don't know what success looks like, but I know I'm close. I'm getting
Yeah.
there. Amazing. And if people want to follow along with your journey and your training, and then of course this amazing Italy to Albania that you're doing as well, where should they go?
You can follow me on Instagram. I'm just Eva Buzo at Instagram, and that's where you can get all my updates.
Amazing. I will link that below so people can check that out. And thank you so much, Eva, for coming on and talking all about marathon swimming and long distance swimming and everything to do with that. And I think the whole mental side of being an athlete and also the journey of performance as well. It's been really an interesting conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Emily. Talk to you later.